Hey, everyone. It's Dr. Tamara Beckford with Your Caring Docs. That's right, where we bring you health, wellness info to get you empowered so you can make some great decisions about your health. We have the special segment, Your Caring Docs, Docs Who Cares, where we bring on docs from all over the world who help us by dropping gems on health and wellness information. And the best part is that they leave their info here so you can get in contact with them if you want to be part of their team, if you'd like to be a part of or a patient of theirs, or even a client, right? So today we are jumping into the space of psychiatry, and I'm super excited to bring on someone from the Austin area. That's right. We're bringing on Dr. Daniel Hochman. Our studio audience. So now, why am I excited to bring on Dr. Hochman? Because Dr. Hochman is a specialist in addiction, right? That's addiction. Now, let me give you just a little bit of what he has done so far. So he's a graduate from the University of Texas, Galveston Medical Branch. So all you UT people, stand up. That's right. Hook 'em horns, all of that. Yes, we get you, right? And he also did his residency in the University of Colorado. He's currently a faculty member at the University of Texas, Dell Medical School, right? So those of you who in Austin, you know that beautiful, beautiful school. And he's worked in private practice clinic. He's worked in outpatients. He's worked with the VA. He's had a very extensive repertoire. And with all of that, he brought his talent right back to the Austin area and opened up his own practice. And if you can't find his practice, let me tell you why. It's very easy. How is it easy? Because it is named Daniel Hochman, MD. Boom! Just look on the screen, and the same name you see on the screen is the name of his practice. But we have some great gems here that he's going to provide for us. And he also has a little special program that he's going to let us know that he has started, right? But before we go further, let's bring on Dr. Daniel Hochman. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How are you today, Dr. Hochman?
I'm real good, and I appreciate the nice warm intro there. I love it.
You've earned all of it. You've been working and taking care of us out here in the community. Now, we've heard about addiction, and I'm pretty sure that addiction has touched everyone's lives. Either it's touched them personally, or they might know someone who has an addiction to anything, you know? Now, one of the things we've talked about off on camera is that Dr. Daniel believes that addiction is incorporated in the whole group. So he doesn't like to just separate it and you know, you have a higher level of this, or you, because you're addicted to X versus this person is addicted to Y. So he thinks addiction is something that you can help from that mental standpoint, right? And so he's going to give us some ideas. So let's start from the beginning as to like, what is addiction? Can you explain it to our audience?
Yeah, the traditional way of thinking about addiction that still follows most kind of definitions is that, you know, it's going to focus a lot on, you know, you get hooked on the substance, and then you start getting preoccupied with it, and then you get hooked, and, you know, and then you can't stop. And that's what addiction is. And I mean, that's an okay enough definition, but it doesn't really describe what's happening. And so as a psychiatrist, the only times people get better is when they understand it psychologically. And so I think about it psychologically, which is then that I think of addiction as really whenever someone has a trained or learned pattern of escaping themselves and they're habitually turning to something to get through some kind of distress. Right. So there's a distress and I'm trying to escape it with something outside of me. And anytime we do that on a habitual basis, that's addiction. And like you said, it could be that it's heroin, but it also can be food. All right. So are they different kinds of addictions? Well, of course, those present entirely different kinds of lifestyles, different choices, different risks, but the psychological process there is remarkably similar, as we've seen in research studies and looking at dopamine levels and brain pathways. So the research backs up that they're remarkably similar in their process.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And when people are thinking about addiction, and you've heard, like, some people might be warned by their family members, addiction might run in the family, or others might hear says, well, the addiction occurs because that person was in that particular type of environment. Can you explain to us, is there a genetic component, an environmental component, or is there a both?
I like that you bring that up. Most of the current sort of textbooks will say it's like 50-50. So, 50% genetic, what you're born with, 50% your environment, how you're raised. If you look at the data critically, though, it's probably more like 90-10, 90 being more like how you're raised and how you develop and all that, and only about 10% or so genetic. And I'll add, even that bit that is genetic, you still have to critically think about it. Like, is there really a gene that can make me addicted to alcohol or addicted to heroin? And the answer is no, right? When we say genetic, that there's like, genetics for addiction, really we just mean certain traits or certain characteristics. So, for example, people can have a genetic component to being impulsive or being a risk taker, right? I mean, you look around, some people just from birth, anybody who's a parent knows, like, some kids, the kids just go at it. And other kids are real cautious and everything. But yeah, it's not like you've got a gene that makes you go towards any specific substance. So they're just predispositions that have certain tendencies, but it's very minimal. So by far, most of it's how we develop as people.
That's very interesting. And I'm glad that you explained that it's not really like a gene within the cell that's really say, okay, well, you are going to be this. Because there are many people who have family members who might be, addicted to a substance or recently been addicted. And that brings on anxiety within that. If it's an adult and then their child to see like, wow, mom is a recent addict to something. Am I going to be that because I have mom's genes? Does that mean that automatically I am going to be an addict? And so it's good to explain that a lot of it is not necessarily in your genes. It's just the impulsivity. If you're at risk of being an impulsive person, and you're more likely to do impulsive things. Right?
Yeah. And like looking at that as an example, so say you say, people are higher risk takers, so that means you're going to be an addict. Well, no, I mean, being a risk taker could mean that you're an entrepreneur, or could mean you do other things like choose the riskier path on a hike, or on a ski slope or something. And it doesn't mean you're choosing addiction just because you're a risk taker. And same thing, just because you're a very cautious person doesn't mean you're like never going to have addiction. There are plenty of overly cautious people that get so anxious about life that they turn to addiction to get through that anxiety. So there's not really like one magic sort of gene or attribute that makes you addicted or not, which is both good and bad, right? I mean, we want to think, oh, good, my family doesn't have any genes for it, I'm okay. Right. So that's, that's one side. And then you have other people that say, oh, everyone in my family has it. So we're neither ever fully protected, nor are we fully doomed. There's so much more to life than just that.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, with knowing that all that you just explained, that there are different components to addiction, that means that there are usually different treatment plans. So what are some ways that addiction is treated?
I break it down so that people understand there's a lot of ways to intervene. So most of the current addiction treatments out there that follow like the rehab kinds of models, in my mind, are just addressing a sliver of it. So that would be just that phase where you're using, or whatever the thing is that you're addicted to. And so there'll be contingency sorts of things. So like if you drink a lot, it'll be like, okay, don't buy any alcohol, don't hang out with friends that drink, have a relapse plan, all that stuff, right? And I call that just really common sense stuff. So most people are when they get treatment, just getting that only common sense part. When I approach it, I like to do everything that leads up to it. So it starts with some form of distress, and it could be that's like trauma. It could be, PTSD, depression, anxiety. But a lot of people don't realize too, it can just be softer things. It could be like, it's very common that I treat someone, in their 40s, and they just feel bored with life or feel pretty empty, purposeless, not happy with where they are at this point. That's not necessarily depression or anxiety even. It's just, they're just not happy. There's distress there. And then there's a turning to things to escape that bad feeling. I mean, it feels bad to take stock of your life and you're like, what am I even doing with myself? I don't like where I am. And yet it takes way too much effort and courage to like make a huge career change or change things in your family or things like that, because it's been what you've been working towards and building for years. So just to give you an idea of like, it doesn't need to be like this very diagnosed mental illness. Right? It can just be how life is, going. So I like to address always the root cause and take care of that source of pain. So I call that emotional pain, because it's just a generalized way of thinking about distress. So there's pain. So addressing the root cause is always going to win. But there's another thing that comes between the pain and the actual addiction, which is a craving. And there are a couple medications for craving. But short of that, there are also so many good psychological approaches and techniques to deal with cravings. Because say I hate where my life is right now. The next thing that comes up, the mind's saying, well, how do I get out of this feeling? Right? That's only natural. So that's the craving. That could be candy, and chocolate and ice cream. It could be going out of the marriage for sex. It could be drugs and alcohol, right? It could be all kinds of things, shopping too much, but some form of escapism, right? And that's a phase 2 that I like to intervene on, because if you can tolerate the distress that you're in and ride out the craving, then you don't even get to the addiction part. So you can take care of the problem. You can learn to tolerate the problem so that you ride your craving out. You can also do what I call just the more common sense stuff for addiction. And then I also address this piece at the end here that I call false pleasure, because the whole reason I call this whole thing a current, it goes from the pain all the way, through, but at the end of the current is this false pleasure. It's the idea that I'm going to escape my pain and somehow stay in this state of bliss from whatever the thing is. But eventually you can only shop so much. You can only eat, so much ice cream. You can only have so much to drink, and so it's a false pleasure because it just causes more destruction and so on. So I address everything, whenever I approach it. And that way you don't have to be perfect in any one of those areas. But if you've got some tools in each area, you're so resilient.
So you've seen that you end up, I guess, with patients. Do you see that once you emboldened them and empowered them with these tools, that they're able to make the decision if they've missed step 1 and they've moved on to step 2, and it's like, okay, well, wow, I realize that I'm in step 2. These are the tools that Dr. Hochman has given me in order to prevent myself from going to step 3 on this current and heading to the false pleasure states. And if they do end up there, then they can recognize and be able to prevent getting from phase 1 when the current starts to rise again. So you're noticing that these are arsenals that you're empowering your patients with so that they can prevent themselves either from getting towards the current, or if they're in the current, they can stop it at different phases and not move on to the next step.
That's exactly right. And in each of these phases, there are dozens of things you can do, right? So like in the program I built, there's not like 1 or 2 tricks or tools to do. I mean, for that pain section, right, there are dozens and dozens of things we can do, right? So there's lots of lessons there. The shortest amount of things we can do is actually in the addiction part, because if you're getting high, well, then you're getting high. I mean, all you can do is just try to remove what that thing is in front of you. But the room to do stuff is in all these other phases. And yeah, I mean, so you have literally, a few hundred things you can do to work on your emotions, work on tolerating them, and then all the things around your lifestyle, and also ideas you have about what pleasure means and all that. And then I also teach people just how to get out of that, not just to end that current, but like, well, what is life then if I'm not just trying to be in this state of pleasure or get away from pain? Well, then what am I trying to do with my life? People get lost there. So, so there are literally hundreds of things you can do. And, in any treatment I provide and with the program, you have that tool set, and that's why you only need so many of them to work before you're good.
Wonderful. So now I know people are hearing us and they're like, wait a minute. So Dr. Hochman is talking about this program. I wonder what he's talking about. So give us some highlight as to the name of the program and how you have been putting it together and how long you've been putting it together, and how can others benefit if they feel like they need this program. Because I'm telling you guys, he's getting great reviews online. Like, I mean, people have been really, really, really empowered and emboldened, and they're saying like, wow, I really, really love this program. So we're going to let you in and let so you know what this program is. Alrighty, go, Dr. Hochman. Tell them what the name of it is.
Yeah, so the program's called Self-Recovery, and it's at selfrecovery.org. Yeah, it's something I built several years ago and took 2 years to build. And I really wanted to weave all of these things we're talking about together, because people go to get, therapy, but they go to their doctor for the medications. They went to detox, and then they might try rehab or self-help books or 12-step. And none of it really puts it together so that you have like this seamless journey to understand, like, here are all the things I can do. Because the cases I get, they've tried one or two things, and then after some time it fails. So in general, if you go to rehab or 12-step or something, there's about a 90 to 95% chance of relapse. So extraordinarily high. So, and it really doesn't need to be that way if you do the right things in your approach. So we've got, plenty of approaches and tools out there now. So I put it together, and that's what's in the program. It's fully online and on demand. So you don't have to be scared about approaching anywhere, because it's online and it's just you. So you're just up against you. You don't have to worry about being judged or telling your story in front of a crowd for the first time and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fully private, online. Just go to selfrecovery.org, and you get to go through that whole journey. It's meant to really be fun. You get to learn yourself, discover what makes you uncomfortable, what different ways of being are. And so it unlocks a lot more than just about addiction. There's people that go through it and they're just healthier in general. So well beyond addiction. It's not all just, stop drinking, stop this, stop that. Yeah, it's a fun way. So you go through it, yeah, and like you said, the results have been really good. It's been used now across the globe in over 20 countries. The results are over 9 times better than rehab, and it costs less than 1% of rehab. So so it's been a pleasure to put together, and it's nice to see where it's going.
Yes. See, so it's an all-encompassing. So you go through the program and you're not just being judged. You're doing it from the comfort of your home, and it's unlocking different mindset that you probably, and maybe even realizing like maybe there are other people say triggers. Maybe there are other things that triggers you that you didn't realize, right? It's getting you off that current. So eventually it's almost like a lifesaver. Like we're throwing you a lifesaver to get you off that current. And then I'm pretty sure they're more empowered by going through that program, and they feel more emboldened at the end.
Yeah. You just become self-reliant. You won't be frantically looking for, somebody's advice or someone to save you or anything, or you really become, like I say, emboldened and start to master yourself in general. Because, to master addiction, you really have to master the self, like who I am, where I come from, how I handle myself with different feelings that come up, and what I want to do with myself. So, in taking care of addiction, you really become just this whole new healthy person. It goes far beyond just the thing, like the object of the addiction. So it is a fun process.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Wow. So now you've gone through and you've built this really, really great program where you're helping others out there. It's a self-recovery program that is online, and it's literally the name of it, right? Self-recovery. So you're helping yourself to recover. Now we want to know, you're helping all of these people. So Dr. Hochman, what do you do when you want to relax?
Well, I don't practice, mindfulness meditation and things as much as I would like. I'll tell you, I'm kind of a dork. So one of the things I'll just say recently that I like doing is throwing on a YouTube of Alan Watts. I don't know if you've heard of Alan Watts.
No.
He's just one of these amazingly articulate philosophers. He's now deceased, but he really brought a lot of Eastern traditions and ideas to the West, but in a way that, oh man, just he explains them so beautifully that it just sets me at ease.
Oh, wonderful. So I know that this is probably going to end up opening and helping you build even more programs because you're opening up an additional part of the mind. Look at you.
Yeah. Well, there's already Eastern tradition stuff in the program. There's a whole mindfulness series and all sorts of things. Because Eastern traditions deal a lot with pleasures and false pleasures, which has a lot to do with addiction. But anyway, I can always just kind of lay back, listen to him, and he's just very rhythmic, and it's relaxing.
It helps to relax. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, now that we've discovered what Dr. Hochman does for relaxation, that's awesome. So he's saying like, I'm not really into mindfulness. Yeah, that sounds like a type of mindfulness to me, Dr. Hochman.
There's all kinds of things that could be called that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, I do want you to just give our audience an idea of where they can find you if they would love to either be patients of yours or they'd love to participate in this online program.
Yeah, so the program's at selfrecovery.org, and you should find all the info you need there. The phone number and email that's listed there do go to a team right here, so it's not outsourced or anything. And yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, which is at Self Recovery Health, and also my practice is hochmanhealth.com. So those are all the places people can get me.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All righty. So the awesome thing about all of this is that you can also find Dr. Hochman. You'll find him on our Your Caring Docs page, where we'll highlight and let you guys know where Dr. Hochman is. And also you'll find this podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, right? If you're on a Spotify, there we are. If you're on Apple, there we are too. And if you're on Buzzsprout, on Google, we are there. So you can download this episode there. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, which is Your Caring Docs, URCARINGDOCS. And we're also on our different Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and also Twitter and TikTok. We do the tick and the talk. So you let us know what you think about those TikTok videos, right? Alrighty. So I am so very honored to have Dr. Hochman join us on Your Caring Docs. And he has given us a highlight of what addiction is, what are different ways that can be treated, and also about his wonderful program, which is called Self-Recovery, which is an online program which you can do from the comfort of your own home to help you to get through and pass on from addiction, right? Dr. Hochman, thank you so much for joining us on Your Caring Docs.
You bet. Awesome to be here.
Thank you. Alrighty, guys, take care, and we'll see you next time.